Hello and welcome to episode 126 of Random Encounter, the RPG Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today is Derek. I wish Morgana was a ferret Heemsbergen.
That is so true. That might be one of my most favorite nicknames you've ever given me. But I wish like every small animal was a ferret, basically. Nothing against all other types of small animals, but damn, ferrets are the top.
I think Morgana needs to get a special prize this year as the least annoying anime trope character in a Persona game ever, because I absolutely adore him / her.
Right, me too. I also adore Morgana, except for the fact that Morgana will not let me decide when I want to go to bed.
Oh god, that is the worst!
As Twitter user Voodoo Person said, Morgana is it's an externalized avatar of your depression.
Yep.
That's strange because in my experience, cats are usually trying to wake you up in the middle of the night to play instead of forcing you to go to sleep.
Yeah,
that's about right.
This is counter cat culture. Okay, so we got two other people to get in here. We have Robert. I wish it was darker. Fenner.
Well, I don't know if that's entirely fair. I'm actually really, really feeling this.
I thought you might.
I'm much happier with this than I was with SMT4 Apocalypse. So,
come on, the power of friendship beating demons. But I think P5 is
more appropriate here.
Yeah, I think P5 is a lot darker than people were expecting. It's got more of an edge, kind of the way that Persona 3 did, whereas Persona 4 was like Scooby and the gang, solving mysteries, which I love. I'm not bashing it, but this kind of feels like a little bit of a return to the darkness of Persona a little bit.
It's kind of a step between 3 and 4, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's also red. It's very red. And then we have Mike, my Cosmic Star heroine, Solosi.
Okay, one moment. Okay, I'm not going to say anything about that. But now you have me thinking: would you say that Teddy's more like a Scrappy-Doo and Morgana's more like a Scooby-Doo in terms of how appropriate the mascot is?
I don't
fair.
detest Teddy, but I did not like him. Whereas Morgana, from like the opening scene, I was like, okay, you are my cat. Maybe it's because I'm a cat person and I'm mostly playing Persona 5 with one of my cats like on my lap the entire time.
And you play Persona 5, most of Persona 5 with a cat in your backpack or in your party.
Yeah, and I love how I'm gonna say he again. I'm not far enough in the game to use proper pronouns, but they refer to him as a he. But he will put his head up whenever I answer a question in class, and then as the screen's fading out, he puts his head down. There's just little touches like that just make me really happy. And yeah, he's just hanging out on your desk.
And Morgana does say, "I'm obviously male" when they ask him directly at one point.
Yes. Voiced by a female, but whatever. Goku is voiced by a female in Japan, so I'll get over it.
Yeah. In Japan, Morgana's voice actress is the same voice actress as Pikachu. So
lovely,
extra squeaky.
Okay. So we got to talk about Persona 5. It is finally here. I apologize to our listeners for taking so long. I wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to really dig into this, 100 freaking hour RPG. I've only put in about 20. I'm on to the third palace. So I'm sure I'm behind all of y'all. We're obviously going to avoid spoilers. I want to throw that out there right now. We're going to talk in generalities, about the game, the systems. We will talk a little bit about the localization. So I'll give you a warning when that happens, and I'll try to include some times in the show notes in case you really don't want to hear anything. And then we do have to talk about something that skeeves me out a little bit related to a couple of the social links in the game. And again, I'll put a timestamp on that to let you know when we start and end that talk in case you really don't want to listen to it. But
I know they're called Confidants now, but I'm going to still call them social links forever, probably.
Yeah, but I'm going to call them by their proper Christian name. They are social links.
That term is ensconced in my brain now.
So what do we think here, guys? I'm kind of, I guess for me, it was like the first hour or so of playing this game was just like a visual overload of just, this might be one of the most beautiful games and one of the most stylish games I've ever played. The music has just wrapped me up in a blanket of pure comfort, and I will actually play it in my office constantly when like kids are working on problems, just as like smooth jazz music in the background. I am just in love with this game, but I will say it is like almost intimidating how much there is to it. And I kind of have to feel like enough energy to sit down and play this game of like, okay, I'm really going to get into this. I'm going to do some dungeon crawling. I'm going to talk to some people. Like, whew, it's an investment.
Yeah, it's no doubt, like you said, I think it's one of, if not the most stylish video game ever made. I know that's very, very lofty praise, but when every single facet of the entire experience oozes as much charisma as this game does, it's almost hard to go back to other games, which doesn't mean that, like, it's that other games are going to fall short forever. But yeah, I mean, like, when you have a menu that is as compelling as Persona 5's, it's like, I've had 2 instances of people coming over to my house for whatever reason, and then they're like, all right, we're going to go out, or, we'll make dinner or something, and then I'm playing Persona 5, and they just sit on the couch, and they're enraptured. Yep. And these are people who have never played a Persona game before, and both of them actually don't even really play RPGs, and they just sat there like, oh my god, what is this game? Like, why is everything so cool?
Even like the victory menu where you're just sort of like you just transition into running into just continue running into the dungeon. Everything from the UI to the combat to just transitioning from phase to phase is so stylish and good. I'm just, the whole thing is just a feast for the eyes and ears. I have not been this pumped about a game in maybe a decade.
I really love the loading screens. Like commuting to school in the morning, and you see the passengers on the train.
The spinning umbrellas if you walk from a place to place in the rain.
That's right. And then like you go on a field trip, and the people walking around in the loading screen change to reflect where you are.
Yes.
Is anybody playing on PS3, or are we all PS4?
PS4.
PS4, yeah.
PS4 here.
I bought a PS4 earlier this year with this game as a major motivating factor.
I was just interested to see how it played on PS3. I haven't heard anything bad at all.
I got development in like 2011. So. Yeah. I've heard that it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It's not. I mean, it's incredibly stylish, but it's not the most, I guess, taxing on the hardware.
Right.
I think I heard the loading times were a little longer, but not even that much.
It's also very impressive, going back to the UI for a second. Like, I'm not bagging on Final Fantasy 15. Please don't take it that way. I want to finish this game, but like, Final Fantasy 15's menus are atrocious. Like, it is difficult to read if you are any sort of distance away from the TV in your living room. At least they're releasing a patch to let you UI scale it, thank Christ. But like, by comparison, where I feel like I am constantly just battling with menus in Final Fantasy 15 to get places, Persona 5, just with the ability to just with one touch of, the square button, to instantly heal your whole party, very easily bringing up menus. The fact that they've incorporated the entire PlayStation 4, like all the button prompts, you can easily get to your Persona. You can easily attack people. You're not cycling through menus. Remember in Persona 3, it was always a question of like, when I press down, does that mean the wheel rotates clockwise or counterclockwise? Like, I don't think anybody can tell me which way it actually says with like 100% certainty, but like, this game has just been designed around slick user interface, and we kind of knew they were going to do that after SMT4 and SMT4 Apocalypse on the DS. They just these guys, 3DS, these guys really know how to build a UI that is just sexy as all hell and gives you all the functional information very quickly.
Mm-hmm. There's something to be said about being able to execute a command with only one button prompt that makes it's just it's comfortable. It's easy to play, and you get into a battle, and it's like, you can do a rush, like auto battle if you want, or if you know that you want all your characters to defend a turn, it's like, circle, confirm, circle, confirm, circle, confirm, instead of having to scroll through the list of commands, which is, something that I can still handle, but it's when you're handed the option to play it like Persona 4 lets you play it, it's like, damn, why aren't all the other games doing this,
Yeah, it took a little getting used to, because I'm very comfortable menu scrolling and navigating menus in RPGs just because I've been doing it for decades, but it's so fast and easy in Persona 5 that it's going to be hard to go back and replay any of the other games in the series.
Am I the only one that really hopes that they take this demon negotiation and put it into whatever SMT5 is? Like, because it actually makes sense, and it's not nearly as obnoxiously obtuse of like, I like jelly beans, so do I will kill you for loving jelly beans. Like, maybe it's a little too simple in this game, but the demon negotiation is really cool, and you're actually fighting demons in this game, which makes me think that they are just going to do what Atlas did in the PlayStation 2 era and just reuse all these assets and make a proper Shin Megami Tensei 5.
That'd be really nice.
It's going to be so gorgeous.
I think they're going to fold these assets and this engine into more PS4 era RPGs, which I'm totally okay with. And it's a better version of Persona 2 Negotiation, which is great. I haven't played any of the SMT games that have a lot of negotiation in them other than Strange Journey, which is its own weird thing.
It's really not like Persona 2's at all. Persona 2's was really complicated and cumbersome. This is quite a bit similar to SMT4, I'd say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. And SMT4 was definitely way better, and allowing you to carry over skills when you fuse personas. That has been like, I think, the key to bringing the Shin Megami Tensei series to like almost AAA status. It's probably there right now, but like, that takes away a lot of the guessing game that existed with Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, to the point where, like, even if you pick the same demons over and over again for fusion, you would get different combinations of abilities, and how crappy that was. This game eliminates all that. Like, hey, you can have, a Jack Frost that has an Agi skill, a fire skill, just to make sure that you're bringing that over to whatever your next fusion's going to be. I really adore that.
Yep. It's super streamlined. I think that not just innovation, but sort of convenience is a tenet of the Persona design philosophy at this point, because we went from even Persona 3, the original Persona 3 didn't have fast travel.
No,
and
it didn't.
A big reason why Persona 3 Portable was so much easier to play, even though it removed the sort of field areas outside of Tartarus, I found it a lot more enjoyable, because it's a lot of fun to explore these environments, but when you're doing it for the 10th, 20th, 30th, 100th time, you don't want to have to run across the map every single time. So I love that they've really taken into account each of those small improvements and how they affect the overall experience, and they've implemented those into pretty much every game going forward. Mm-hmm. So I could see a lot of these things from Persona 5 that are super convenient being carried over. I don't remember, did Persona 4 have like an instant heal all party button?
I don't think so.
I don't think it did.
I mean, that's not like, you can do without it, right? But once you have it, you're like, okay, cool. I love this. I want this always.
No, I don't think they did, but they did have the fox that allowed you to pay to heal in the middle of the dungeon. So SP is more of a limiting resource in Persona 5 than it was in Persona 4. But
which I'm cool with.
That's just
exciting.
Yeah, the dungeon flow is just different between the two games.
It is.
Mm-hmm. I do have a couple complaints about the game. It took me a real long time to get used to the flow of infiltrating these palaces and using cover. I think the game's camera can be very unwieldy at times, and it does kind of have the Final Fantasy 15 problem of like walking up to a wall and thinking that you got the prompt to like go into cover and you just didn't press it right, and so then you're just kind of standing there. So there's a little bit of awkwardness. It's a little, not terrible, but like.
I was kind of surprised because I honestly felt like the cover just worked almost all the time. Like there are some surfaces that you can't go into cover against, but I felt like I got the hang of it very quickly, and it felt very smooth traversing palaces. Like there are some objects that I can't really think of a specific example. We'll say like Palace 2, maybe. I think they're like some art pieces or something that might be, if I'm remembering correctly, they're very small. So when you dive out of cover to another one, you could sometimes get on the wrong side, like not the one you wanted. And it's kind of awkward to maneuver around those. But overall, I think it adds a lot of fluidity to traversal, which is not something that Persona 3 and 4 had at all.
And there's also like a huge element of they really play into the theme of you being a thief. And everything when you're in the palaces revolves around you being a thief, using cover, staying out of sight. If you're seen too often, you'll get thrown out of the dungeon. So there's a little bit of basic stealth mechanics at play. You're making lockpicks at night to get into chests. They have leaned into a theme that we really haven't seen before with a traditional JRPG of you're a thief. And this game makes me feel more like a thief than that god-awful Thief game that came out a few years ago that was just
they really ride the thief gimmick hard, because I mean every persona for the main characters is a historical or literary thief or ne'er do well, and then when they upgrade their personas, they're all mythological tricksters, and every dungeon feels like a heist. There's the whole Inception angle of going into someone's soul to change it. The thief gimmick is, I think, really successful and stylish, and serves the game. That serves the larger game itself. I really, really dig it, and I was a little going in. I wasn't really sure how successful it would be when we saw the first Phantom Thief trailers for this. Like it looked cool, but I really didn't know how they would pull it off, and they totally pull it off. It's so much fun, even down to the weird costumes that they each have.
I would agree. Not since Locke's section in Final Fantasy VI have I felt like such a competent thief.
Wouldn't it have been cool if you could actually, like, somebody's persona was Locke? How awesome would that have been? Or if Zorro upgraded to Batman.
That would have been excellent.
I've beaten the game. I finished with about 95 hours in the clock.
Holy crap, Derek.
Yeah, very rarely. First of all, I went way too damn hard.
Did you do the thing where, like, you played it so much that then you started to question whether or not you really liked it? Because that happens to me every once in a while.
No. I liked it the whole time. It's lucky that I'm looking for full-time work right now, so I had free time to spare. But I beat it, and I almost immediately was like, is it time to play it again? Which never happened. Like, the only time that ever really happens to me is occasionally with maybe an East game, because I like to play those at harder difficulties, which is also not something that I usually do.
But also, an East game is like 15 or 20 hours, and this game is 90-plus hours.
I know, so I was like, I don't know if I can commit to another playthrough yet. But, of course, they have a lot of convenient New Game Plus features, like carrying over your social stats and other things. And I'm just kind of waiting for... As much as I don't really want to pay for it, I'm waiting for a DLC costume set I really want to drop so that I can buy that and play a game with that. I think I want the Catherine one.
I think that one comes in about in the first week of May, because we've already had the P3 and P4 ones, and then the P1 and P2 ones. Mm-hmm. So I think this week is like the Arena and Dancing All Night ones, and then the following week is the Catherine stuff. I think.
I think Rido's coming out between.
Oh yeah, I want that one too.
And there's also
an if set as well.
What's that?
Is there an if set as well?
I think there is.
No. I think the if set is already out. That came out at the same time as the P1, P2 ones.
It's funny that
there's over $100 worth of DLC here. It's crazy.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Oh my god,
we're gonna get there in a second. I find it interesting that you wanted to fire it up right again, Derek, because with both P3 and P4, when I finished them, I thought I was really going to want to replay them, and then as soon as I started getting to the tutorials again, and I have to go through talking to Yosuke and learning about going into the Midnight Channel, I was like, no.
Well, this one does have a fast forward feature, though.
That is true, and it also this one I think starts far stronger than P4. It gets you. It gets you into the action way faster.
Yep.
So I really like it. Derek, I do want to ask you, since you finished it, and without spoiling story, of course, I kind of read ahead to see what people were complaining about, that the game apparently just throws a very big dungeon at you at the end that's a little monotonous. I'm having flashbacks to Apocalypse right now. Is it really going to make me cry? Or is
it's not. It's not that bad. It's not bad, yeah. There's, I want to say Persona is, I don't want to say it's predictable, because it's still exciting, but after Persona 4 especially, I feel like now they've kind of fallen into this trap of, we have to have X and Y twist, and then we have to give you you think it's over, but it's not, and then a second, you think it's over, but it's not, and Persona 5 does that. I still liked it all the way through, but it was kind of like, okay, I knew that was going to happen. Okay, there were elements that still totally took me by surprise, but the overall sort of trajectory, I think I saw coming from way far away.
I was afraid of that happening. I think I'm in the 7th dungeon, so I was like, oh boy, I bet they're going to throw something at me, aren't they?
They do that.
Yeah, I'm in between Robert and Derek. I just finished the 7th dungeon, and I'm setting up the finale right now.
Okay, I think the final dungeon is a little uninspired, but it doesn't go on that long.
Okay. So it is not the teleporter death trap.
No, there are no teleporters. The longest dungeon is by far the one the game sort of sets up to be the final dungeon.
Mm-hmm. So the one with the December deadline.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of enjoying that so far.
So
it's long, but I actually liked that one a lot.
It has a really good music track too.
Yeah, I like most of the dungeons in this game, and they only really become grueling if I try to do one in a single in-game day. Because then by the end, all of my characters are running out of SP. It's I can't do every encounter anymore, and I have to do a lot of enemy dodging. Like I remember in particular the third and fourth dungeons being just a little bit tricky getting to the very end.
Oh, good. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, in a single day. But the thing is, it's very possible to spread out the dungeon crashing over multiple days, and then you won't run into as many problems that way. But I really wanted to try and get them done in 1 or 2 days if possible, which was not always easy.
I really didn't like the boss of the second dungeon. Kind of relying on.
Not so exciting.
He was just more obnoxious. Like that boss fight went on for like a half hour, and there was like a point in the middle of it where I nearly got wiped, and I was kind of having that feeling like if I get wiped out in a half an hour turn-based fight, I might not come back to this game for a while. Like that just, I don't know. That I think that every once in a while SMT games can rely a little too heavily on just like something bad could happen, and I think Persona's done a really good job of getting away from that. But like they took a step back with this game where like if the main character dies, that's it. And that was like jarring for me when it happened in a random battle at one point.
Yeah.
I had the wrong weakness and I got blasted once, then I got blasted again and I died in 2 hits. And I was like, oh, main character fell. Okay, everything. Wait, what?
Back to the title screen.
What? Like, that felt like a huge step back. Like, even SMT4 didn't do that. And
what kind of world are we living in where you can restart quicker and with less penalties in SMT4 than you can in Persona 5?
Yeah, that was a little weird. That was a little weird.
For boss battles, they let you start at the beginning of the fight.
That's true.
And later in the game, all of your party members, including your navigator, can stop death blows to the main character if you invest enough into their social link.
Okay.
Which is
once you get that, then you're a lot safer.
Yeah.
Okay. It's only happened once, but it was bizarre. I'm like, wait a minute, SMT4 is supposed to be the hardest nails game. Like, why the hell did P5 just kick me in the nuts that hard? Like,
the only boss that really gave me real trouble was one of the Mementos bosses, which had in the middle of the game. I think I fought it during the summer sometime, and it was able to throw an annoying status effect on all of my characters and then attack with psychic skills that got bonus damage from that status effect. So I wiped 3 or 4 times against it, and was lucky enough just to have the status effect miss a couple times to beat it. But the one other boss fight, that's the one in the December dungeon, that guy has 5 forms or something. So that was a little trying. But other than that, I haven't noticed any any real difficulty problems, but I'm playing on normal.
Yeah, and I'm playing on normal too. I think it's just, you can run into a problem where because the main character can use different personas, you might just have the wrong persona equipped at the wrong time. You don't get the jump on an enemy, and then you just get blasted. And like that's SMT. Like, I'm not going to complain too much about it, but going from Apocalypse where even if you died, Dagda would just bring you right back and just be like, okay, dust you off a little bit. All right, try again, which I think is the right form of difficulty for the SMT games. We're talking about games where you can get blown up in one move. Like, being able to just dust yourself off. I think the back to the loading screen is
far too harsh because, sometimes, some of these save points are half an hour or more in each other. So a few frustrating moments where, I'd get ambushed and that was it, and I lost maybe half an hour or an hour's progress. I was like, right, I think I'm done for tonight. And it's the kind of thing, like, if they're going to punish you by wasting your time, penalty, that's really archaic and not good for 2017.
Yeah, it's the only part of the game that I felt like was a little bit of a step backwards. I mean, granted, I'm also coming off playing P3 Portable, where I got to control my entire party, and I had to be reminded of like, well, remember when you first played Persona 3, you couldn't control the entire party, and
That's
I'm like,
right.
oh.
And then, even the FES remake didn't have that ability.
Oh God, there were just moments of like, why aren't you healing me? Help, please! Haven't I been nice to you? I'm taking you out for chocolate parfaits like 50 times. What the hell?
Having to talk to your party members individually and go through like all these different menus and button presses just to like give them an item to equip.
Yeah. Oh,
Those
that's right.
Were the days.
Yeah, there wasn't even a common menu where you could equip your team. You had to.
Right.
Oh, that was awful.
That was really bad.
It's definitely a lot better in that respect. So I think overall we're all very high on P5. Can we talk? You know, we love our children, and I think that means we can also criticize a little bit. And I think we've done a little bit of that. Two major areas of criticism here, and I think the first is not spoiler related, so I will not put the spoiler tag right here. But is Atlas getting away with murder when it comes to DLC? I know I've said this before, but I kind of feel like they're getting a free pass where like they're doing the horse armor thing and no one's calling them on it.
Well, I mean, it's not like plot essential stuff. It's all these little bonuses. I don't know. I guess people criticize Bandai Namco, don't they? So
yeah, I've already spent $21 on this DLC so far, but it's which is a third of the cost of the game already. But I have to say I think it's fun at least because using the Persona 4 DLC as an example, it gives you a costume for all 9 of the playable characters. It gives you a glasses accessory that boosts experience for any character that equips it. And if you have the main character equipped in the Persona 4 outfit, it changes the battle music and victory music to the Persona 4 Golden stuff. And so all of that was $7.
I appreciate that these are sold as bundles, because if each costume was sold individually, I would want to tear my hair out, because that's exactly what.
Oh God, yeah, that's Tails stuff, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not to mention Tails stuff, yeah.
In Tails, that's it's more expensive too. It's like, isn't it like $3 a costume? Or some of these packs are like $12, $13 for Tails games.
Oh, and also in Persona 5 they have the schedule out, but they haven't released all the DLC yet. The casual clothes, the maid butler set, and the swimsuit set are being released for free. Oh, and the Christmas set too.
I think I'm also a little bit paranoid too, because when I was in the throes of Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse hate, and I was just getting completely torn apart by the last boss of that game and could not beat it until I lowered the difficulty. Every YouTube video that I watched online, people were using like the ultimate demons that you only got through the paid DLC. And I was like, that's pretty gross. Like that, and I don't think
there are a couple of downloadable personas for this game, which I haven't got any of. Have you bought any of those, Solosi?
No, I've only bought 3 costume sets.
Okay, because I'm kind of wondering.
Right?
What's that?
Aren't they cameos of like other main characters?
Exactly. Or Izanagi, those, and I think the levels are range from the 40s to 60s. None of them seem, end game dominators.
Okay, I was kind of curious about that, just because I wonder if you got those, if they would kind of help you speed through early game, or because I don't even know if you buy them, do you have to be a high enough level to summon them?
No, you can summon them once without a level penalty or without paying yen. But if you summon them, but beyond the first summon, you have to pay yen, just like normal stuff in your compendium.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, as long as they don't break game balance, that's fine, and they are just sort of cameo personas. That doesn't bother me so much. Nor do the costumes being. I am okay with cosmetic DLC sometimes. Like I've bought I'll buy things for Final Fantasy 14 sometimes for my character, like glamour items that don't affect anything other than how you look. Like that's fine, as long as it doesn't become too egregious, and that's where it's kind of difficult to draw the line, because as a consumer, if I'm sending them the message that I'm okay with purchasing this for real money, they could just take that and run with it and say like, okay, well, they're happy to pay for it, so let's jack up the prices, let's split all these into separate items. Like, that's not what I want. So as long as it doesn't become too egregious, it's fine. It's just hard to say, how do I communicate that to the developers without directly sending them feedback on it?
Right. I think these price points could be interpreted as a little high or too high. I have also bought costume DLC mostly for Heroes of the Storm and Street Fighter 4. I've dropped money on both of those for costumes, but I don't think this is that bad, especially since they're in like you said before, they're in bundles and not individually like Bandai Namco stuff. It would be game breaking to buy some of these level 60 personas and play the very beginning of the game with them, but it doesn't look like it would break the end game. And it's mostly aesthetics. Like it's the reason you download one of these isn't to break the game. It's so that you can use Izanagi in Persona 5. So, which I think is fine. And the price points are maybe a little high, like $7 for costume DLC just feels high, even though you're getting 9 costumes and
it comes with music
audio tracks.
Like the audio is, for me, audio is almost a bigger thing because when you're playing a 90-hour game, you want to be able to switch up the audio. I mean, I guess you could do a custom soundtrack or whatever, but I do like the ability to have the older DLC. And all I can say is thank God that none of this is being sold as the Hot Springs pack. Get only
like that's true. It's one of those things where I think a lot of other companies get raked across the coals for it, justifiably so. And maybe Apocalypse was an outlier, and they've learned their mistakes from that. But it is one of those things where it's like, I'm watching you, Atlas.
Yeah, you worry that they might be getting a free pass because the quality of the rest of the game is
right.
so good.
And I don't think this is disgusting, but if the trend escalates, it could be worrying.
Let's also keep in mind that these companies who are being raked over the coals, they're putting out games, and we are very, very rarely seeing SMT nowadays. They're definitely not annual like they used to be, and those that do come out most commonly are on systems like the 3DS, where, I mean, on
the PS2, didn't we get 7 games out of Atlas in the similar engine in 5 years or something?
Yes, we did.
Holy smoke.
And it's not like that now.
Well, I hope it turns into that a little bit, because
I would like that, yes.
I wouldn't mind a Digital Devil Saga remake that makes the dungeons a little bit more interesting and maybe cuts down some of the grinding. I'd really get behind that. I'd also get behind a Switch version of Persona 5. I really want to play this on my Switch. Am I the only one?
I think when they inevitably do a Golden Fest version of Persona 5, I think a Switch version of that is very logical.
I would love this on Switch. I've really kind of leaned into more portable gaming. I've talked about that before on the show, and there's something about, like, I think if I wasn't playing Zelda on the Switch, I don't think I would have finished it. But, like, the ability to walk around the house and, like, go upstairs and play it a little bit, or bring it to the office when I had a free period or something, that helped me finish Zelda. And it was kind of... I almost felt shackled, which brings us back to, like, the first piece of promotional art for Persona 5 of, like...
Emancipation?
Yeah, like, I kind of felt shackled having to play it on my console again. Like, I love my PlayStation 4, don't get me wrong, but the Switch is very appealing for that portability. So, yes, please, when Persona 5 Red Light District comes out, please put it on the Switch, please. So now we're going to talk about the localization a little bit. So if listeners, you don't want to hear us talking about it again, I don't think we're gonna hit any spoilers here, but I am gonna put a tag here about the localization. It's not terrible, and it's one of those things where I wasn't really noticing some of the garbled or stilted dialogue until it was brought to my attention, and I kind of slowed down. I think the human brain can interpret things very quickly, and I'm used to reading very bad, original sub Evangelion from, like, the 1990s. And so I wasn't really noticing anything, and then when I started reading it slowly, I was like, ooh, some of the
Right, because the script is perfectly intelligible, and I'm sure we'll get more in depth into this, but, like, at no point in the game do you think, what's going on? I don't understand what they meant. Where do I go? There's none of that. It's just... There was, not to interrupt,
I'll continue to do my best to
except there are some
expectations of me.
Messed up.
There was one moment in the game, and I guess this is the only thing that's kind of spoilery, but the whole exchange between Kamoshida and Ryuji about Ryuji's leg. That confused the living hell out of me. I was like, wait a minute. The way it was presented was, Kamoshida saying, I broke your leg once already. and it was like everybody was talking about it like it was common knowledge, and I felt like I had missed a page of dialogue. And maybe I did. Maybe I was reading too fast, or maybe I zoned out at one point.
No,
but
I think
it
that was
didn't.
supposed to be the reveal.
No, yeah.
It didn't feel like they were. It wasn't like the remember when I did this. It kind of just came across like it was common knowledge, and like the main character didn't really have any like, whoa, wait, what, who, huh, wait, what, like. And maybe that was I can't tell if that was a problem with the original Japanese script or if that was a problem with the localization, but something felt I actually like paused the game, went into the log. Thank you for including a dialogue log in this game. That is awesome, and more games need to do that. And I went all the way back to the top of the screen, read through it all again, and I'm like, no, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about right now. Like
now I wonder if maybe the original line was something like, like clipping his wings, or because, he disbands the team and doesn't allow him to run anymore.
Right.
So maybe it's more metaphorical, because like that didn't really come up again, and then like hours and hours later.
Yeah, it comes
like,
up
I
again.
Punched Kamishita, and I was like, what? No, what? When?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was what?
Yeah, it felt like that there's a reel missing or something in that dialogue, and I didn't totally get what happened until I was well into Ryuji's social link or confidant link. And the whole localization feels like feels unprofessional. Like it could have used additional passes or something, because it's not that it's inaccurate or that it's leaving out information. It's just no one speaks English this way.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of lines that need to be reworked. Yeah.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a volunteer manga scanlation group that of which I read maybe a little too much. So I was able to understand what was happening, but it just didn't feel natural or it just didn't feel natural.
And a lot of this comes from overuse of Japanese stock phrases that are translated, word for word, because
as expected of blank.
Yeah, as
it
expected.
would be problematic if that happened.
It can't be helped. Yes, it would be problematic, because like for problematic they're using a verb komarimasu, which means like to be problematic, but nobody in English. I mean, like it's grammatically correct to say that, but nobody says it. Mm-hmm. So while a lot of these constructions are using, oh my God, shut up. A lot of these constructions are things that are intelligible, but they just come across awkwardly or unnaturally, and
this food is problematic.
That's where the the localization sort of falls short.
It's also not in so much because not every line of dialogue in the game has voice work. It feels like the voice work is better. Like most of the scenes, except for what's her name? Sae. Yeah, her dialogue is atrocious in the flashback scenes. Like there are times where I'm like, are you coherent? Did I get concussed? Like but most of the spoken dialogue is better. I feel like it's mostly around the non-vocalized dialogue, like when somebody's talking to the principal or some of the shadow stuff and the mementos. Those moments feel like the real, like, oh dear, like this really doesn't feel good.
The shadow stuff is a lot of nonsense, but I'm a little more forgiving of that, because the negotiation dialogue in all of these games is kind of nonsense.
Yeah. And again, it's not that it's not terrible. It's just that it does feel a little weak, and I don't think any of us can say that about Persona 3 or Persona 4. Like, those games had so much characterization and everything felt so consistent. This does feel like a little bit of a step back.
Well, I'm not sure about Persona 3, but Persona 4 was largely the handiwork of Nick Maragos, who's now with Treehouse. So... Mm-hmm. I think that his deft touch is no longer there. That may be a reason.
Yes, and it should be said, I think, that I don't think anybody here, or most of the people who are online criticizing the localization as well, intend any of this to be personal attacks against any of the members on the localization staff.
No, absolutely not.
Because it has nothing to do with them as people, and what it has to do with more is how that large team didn't mesh properly, and I think that there was a lack of direction here, and some of the creative choices were off the mark, especially with the pronunciation of a lot of the Japanese names. Considering some names are pronounced correctly and some aren't, it's kind of like, who did they get their direction from? Because a native Japanese speaker would not tell them to say Sakamoto.
Right. And I think there's also maybe a little bit of we got this game relatively quickly. I mean, if we go back to the original days of localization, going Japanese to English, and how it would take upwards of a year to get something, and they obviously don't have the money of a Final Fantasy 15, like, to release it day and date across the world. I feel like there was maybe a little bit of a push to get this out the door because the fans were, I mean, we were all being bastards.
Delayed, yeah.
We wanted this game as quickly as humanly possible, and I think,
Right.
you know, come hell or high water, they got it to us. And it was just, it was kind of jarring to me to go from Yakuza 0, which feels like it has such a lovingly crafted. Yeah, you know, there are problems with that game, and it is, as Derek said in the last episode, it is a lot of old Japanese dudes talking and sighing at each other that can get a little. But the localization is beautiful in a lot of ways, and I just don't feel like this game has that same thing. And Derek's right, we're not doing personal attacks, we're calling it like we see it, and I think that localization, we're past the days of IR sick in, you know, Final Fantasy VII, or just completely garbled English, and there's none of that in this game, but it feels more functional than stylish, which is so opposed to the rest of this game, which is such a stylish creation.
That's very well put.
Thank you. I can be diplomatic when I try. I still love this game. I just, you know, when they eventually do a re-release of this game, I would just kind of hope that maybe with a little bit more time and care, they could
retranslate 120 hours.
I kind of wonder if, because, you know, we do live in the day of patching and games being updated post-release, I wonder if the conversation sort of becomes loud enough and those concerns are heard by Atlas. I do wonder if they'd consider ever patching some of the dialogue in the game, because it's not impossible that they could do it. It would be a huge undertaking, and I don't know that it would be, you know, financially super smart of them to do, but it's possible they could.
Yeah, and there's also, you got to remember, everybody take a drink. I'm gonna reference Metal Gear. Remember that they used almost the exact same script for Metal Gear Solid and Twin Snakes, the GameCube remake, and I think everybody pretty much agrees that the Twin Snakes is far inferior in delivery. Like, so there is, you can have the lines all correct, but if the direction is off, I mean, there are just moments in Twin Snakes where I'm like, wow, that sounds horrible. You go back and replay the original Metal Gear Solid, and it's like, oh no, they said the same lines, it just did not come out nearly as well.
No Jeremy Blaustein with Twin Snakes, is there?
No, he was not involved in that one, and it really hurts it in play. I mean, I still think Metal Gear Solid is one of the best pieces of localization ever, because there's a couple moments that are the straight literal Japanese to English, and Jeremy Blaustein even said, like, we tried to talk to Kojima out of it, like, nobody says love bloom on a battlefield, like, nobody says that in America, why are you doing this? But for the most part, that game sounds like a, you know, Michael Bay action movie, and it's also the best performance out of David Hayter they ever got. So, you know, there's something to be said for that, and I really love these characters in Persona 5, but I do feel like some of their personality feels shaved off, if that makes sense. Like, they're not as out. Well, and maybe that's also part of the nature of this game being a little bit more adult. You know, it is hard as a non-Japanese speaker to really come to terms with that. Whereas the cast of Persona 4 was bigger than life in so many ways, and I think Persona 5 is a little bit darker, a little bit more mature. They're definitely dealing with more mature scenes. I mean, maybe they are supposed to feel a little bit more sedated, but I can't tell if that was a localization problem or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of characterization in general, again, remaining spoiler-free, Haru, I think, is introduced too late in the game.
Yeah.
I just think that she isn't developed enough as a character. I mean, she's fine. She's still likable. But, you know, when you have a character joining at hour 60 of an 80 to 90 to 100-hour RPG, it's kind of hard to become as attached and to see as much of them shine through.
And even with late joining characters in Persona 3 and 4, the last character to join in Persona 3 is Shinjiro, and in 4 it's Naoto. You see them in the plot and foreshadowing as early as, you know, spring or early summer. But with Haru, you don't see hide nor hair of her until maybe
you see her in a couple of cutscenes, like a couple of animated cutscenes. She's in the background, or they focus on her for a second, but she doesn't interact in any way.
Yeah, but that's still like just before her story segment begins. It's way too late.
it makes me wonder, whenever I liked using her and I liked her, but I was thinking, like, really, why are you here? I mean, really just to drive one plot point. And then the way that she reacted to it afterwards felt a little false. And, as you said, she appears so late, and her confidant link appears so late, and it's gated quite high to a certain
I got hers to 2.
So,
I managed to max hers, but I had to make her priority 1 for like the last 6 weeks of the game.
You just neglected everyone, but you just hung out with her all the time?
Not everyone, but many people.
She comes super late, and you have to have, like, is it rank 4 or 5 proficiency?
You need rank 5 proficiency to get it above rank 1. So you can start it, but to do rank 2, you need max proficiency, which is tricky to raise. Like, it's really easy to raise knowledge and charm, but the other 3 you have to go out of your way a little bit.
Yeah, and not to mention all of her abilities in battle, like Baton Pass and Protect and everything, are all gated behind that. So it's like, if you don't do her social link, she's kind of not worth using in battle. So anyway, this isn't a comment on the localization at all.
Yeah, for the 5th and 6th palaces, she was my only maiden character that didn't have Baton Pass, which was annoying and made me want to not use her.
Yeah.
Well, shall we move on from that point to the other thing you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, so here's your other break point right here. Okay, so for new-time listeners, you probably don't know that I am a teacher. Take my job very seriously. I work at a boarding school. You can, you can, as the male protagonist in this game, date older women. And, man, does it skeeve me out. Like, and this is a minefield. Derek and I talked about this briefly through text the other day. This is a minefield, no matter how you slice it. Like, any opinion that you have on this subject matter can just blow up in your face. So, I want this to be an area where we can have a discussion. And, we got a bunch of dudes here, which kind of sucks. I wish we had a female perspective. I'm mad at you, Caitlin, for not being on this episode. How dare you damn it. But, like, I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? Because I'm sitting here, and it feels like for the first palace in this game about sexual abuses of a male teacher on female students, and then to flip it all around and basically have the male character, the male protagonist of this game, the underage minor, having all this power, and particularly with his homeroom teacher, sort of taking advantage of her in a not so great place. I mean, I guess with Takami, the doctor, you could argue that there's a little bit more of a power dynamic, that she is a more fully formed woman, like not in need of saving. So maybe that one doesn't skeeve me out as much, but the homeroom teacher one just feels right out, as Monty Python and everyone would say. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
And part of it is, I mean, this is also a spoiler, but I guess you gave fair warning, is that your teacher, her story arc is that she works part-time at a maid service. And when you interact with her in her confidant, she calls you master, and she cleans your room and makes you coffee and can do tasks for you. And that flips the power dynamic of teacher-student into servant-master in a way that is really creepy. It's not always, natural and understandable. And I guess it's sort of conflating two male fantasies of, romancing a maid and romancing a teacher, but it's not done gracefully.
It's like a comedy take on Rule of Rose or something.
Oh God! Oh God!
Man.
It just.
I feel like that relationship had so much potential to explore, like this really interesting power dynamic, and
she's an interesting character on her own in a vacuum.
Yeah, there's a little bit of the, whenever you read about any of these kinds of cases online and in the events that it is a female teacher engaging in sexual acts with a minor and a male, you always have the really like gross response of, oh man, where was this teacher when I was in high school? Like just really gross responses like that, and I feel like this is almost playing into that a little bit, but at the same time,
definitely.
What's the age of consent in Japan? I don't.
It depends on the prefecture.
But yeah,
it's not
13 is
everywhere.
the official, white age of consent. But also, there's like obscenity statuses or corruption of minors, sort of like guidelines that raise the actual age of consent to like 16 to 18. depending.
Yeah.
So the relationship.
Also, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. In Persona 5 isn't necessarily violating a law. It's just kind of like morally questionable.
Right.
I think there are laws against high school teachers cavorting with students. Though.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not educated enough on that, so I could actually be wrong here. So I apologize if I am.
A friend of mine from the UK is a teacher, and we've talked about this. And they actually have laws in the UK where even if the student has graduated, and then they develop a relationship, the teacher and the student, they can actually get you for, I believe it's so-called grooming laws. Like you were grooming this person, as an underage minor to engage in sexual acts. Like, so they can
retroactively, kind of thing.
Yeah, they can retroactively go after you. But it just, again, I think with the, I'm sticking my toe maybe on a landmine here. I feel like with the doctor confidant link, both characters are in some form of power. You know what I mean? Like it feels like they're both in a good place. She recognizes what she's doing is wrong, but at the same time, he's not in a authoritative role over her. It's really the homeroom teacher one that feels, and it feels doubly bad because she's your teacher. This isn't somebody that you didn't have any connection with or anything like that that's outside of your school life. Mm-hmm. This is your homeroom teacher. Like that, I don't know. It really, yikes.
And maybe worst of all is that her link gives you a lot of good bonuses. So
it's like the best link.
Yeah. So I was extra motivated to do it, even though I was not always totally comfortable with the content of it.
The trouble here is like I think it's easy for these kinds of concerns to come off as being sex negative because I am not sex negative at all. It's just. I'm in fact extremely sex positive. It's just sort of like, what we're talking about, it's mostly power dynamic here that makes it kind of
context.
Yeah, it's context. Thank you. I mean, context matters. And the reason why we're bringing this up is not because we want to be like, ooh, shame on them. It's so nasty. Like you're nasty if you like it, which I guess it's easy to come off that way. I just think that we're concerned and we want to discuss like, I don't know, in a game that's all about sort of, breaking free from oppressive shackles in general and making people not be assholes. Like, it's kind of strange that there's a relationship that goes so almost like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like so obviously against the first problem presented in the game. Like the first arc is about sexual abuse and then they have this. So it's like, is this not retreading similar ground, but with the script flipped? Excuse me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of casting the women as the victim with the older male teacher, and then you could make the argument that the main character is victimizing the homeroom teacher. It's just, oh boy, it's really tough to talk about. It is, but it just, And I am going to throw a little bit of a flag on the play here. That there was a lot of complaining. We talked on this podcast before about a lot of complaining about The Witcher and its depiction of women and how like a lot of the monsters that you fight are women in sexual roles. And I think there's a very interesting conversation to be had there. But it kind of feels like maybe because this is a 100-hour RPG and people are just starting to get to this stuff, it kind of feels like the Persona 5 thing is kind of not being analyzed at the same time. And I just, you guys can agree with me or disagree with me on this. I think that we're kind of seeing something here where it's like, the localization, some people are telling us it's not really that bad. You're maybe getting all worked up over nothing. And then with these confidant links, it's kind of like, oh, come on, it's not really that big a deal. I think it is kind of getting into that territory of, well, because we like it, we're not going to criticize it. And I made that argument a couple weeks ago with Zelda. Mm-hmm. Like, I do think that sometimes gamers are not willing to criticize something that they like. And I'm not saying you guys, like, I love you guys, especially Derek. But, like, I'm not saying that about you guys. I just do think that sometimes, and I could be accused of that when it came to The Witcher. I'm sure somebody could say, well, you came to The Witcher's defense pretty hard. And, yeah, you're probably right about that, but maybe I didn't see the same things. I feel like there's a really good analysis to be had here, and maybe we're just starting it.
I think much like Zelda, this is something that has been eagerly awaited and a long time coming, so maybe people are just basking in that now, and the more in-depth...
I mean, it's super good, you guys. Like,
great. Absolutely
this
great.
Game is amazing. It's outstanding. Yeah. But I think in general, there is a danger in refusal to critique. I mean,
right.
We gotta be able to talk about stuff. And you also can't, like, if you like it in spite of all of that, fine, awesome. I like it in spite of all of that. Like, none of those things made the game bad. It's just, like, if you're not willing to even discuss it, then I think that there's a problem there. And if you're, what do you gain from, like, blind loyalty or sort of like a blind insistence on there's nothing wrong with it at all? Like, there can be these things wrong with it, and I would still score this game like a 98 or a 96 or something. Like, it's still outstanding.
Right.
But I think it's sort of our duty as people who discuss video games in a semi-professional context to critique what may or may not be perfect about the game, or what is perfect. We're talking about it.
What was that Japanese verb for problematic again?
Komarimasu.
Right. I also feel very similar to P5, the P team's last game, which was Catherine, where I really felt that game started off strong by asking some really, really hard-hitting questions about relationships and infidelity, and about guys wanting to kind of go back to being not stepping up to be men, and then it turns out it's all a demon, and it kind of like it kind of flew off the rails at that point, and it's like, oh, I think you guys had something very interesting to say here, but then you just relied on it's a succubus, screw it, you need to kill it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, I think this is a team that readily wants to go to these places, and maybe they're still, dipping their toe into the water. Maybe they're still playing around with it, and we're only going to get better by doing more of this, if that makes sense. Like, we're gonna stumble, we're gonna have problems, we're gonna have problematic trans characters in BioWare games. We're like, nah, I get what you guys were going for, but you kind of screwed it up a little bit. But
speaking of Catherine, comedy slide whistle. If you sleep with a trans woman, it's to be laughed at.
Yeah.
And also, I'm a little puzzled by that whole trans woman in Mass Effect Andromeda thing, because they had what I thought was a pretty interesting and more positively portrayed trans character in Dragon Age Inquisition. And so how did they take so many steps back with that character in Mass Effect Andromeda?
I think it's just different team, and
I guess.
different direction, all that. But I mean, we've talked about Mass Effect Andromeda enough, and
yeah.
I get that we're particularly. I know those of us here are very invested in critiquing these kinds of social issues, but I don't want it to sound like, oh my God, games are a chore and I have to pick apart every little thing that's wrong with it. It's just like, it's worth discussing. These are real things that affect real people, and when you're represented consistently in a way that's damaging on a wider scale, like, maybe we should talk about why that's happening in video games. So. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I like video games, you guys. I like to play them on my PlayStation. I like to play them on my Switch, computer, DS.
Switch is really good. I really like it.
I love the damn Switch.
I love it.
I think I already said this, that now I'm questioning, do I go PS4 for trophies or do I go Switch for versatility?
I switched. I made a pun and I didn't even realize it. I switched my Bloodstain pre-order to the Switch.
Nice.
Oh.
I just realized I really wanted to play it on that device, and I will probably be getting Puyo Puyo Tetris. So Jackie can kick my ass at that, and I think we already pre-ordered Mario Kart. I really like the Switch.
I played probably like a total of like 8 to 10 hours of Puyo Puyo over the last 2 days.
Just the demo.
With people in my house. Yeah, it's like, it's outrageously addictive.
I think the Switch is a great device, and please put Persona on it, and whatever Shin Megami Tensei 5, if whatever Apocalypse If comes out, I will play it on the Switch. And I think we all like Persona 5. I want to get back to that. I think we all love Persona 5. It's just that this is such a deep game which is handling some very heavy themes, and the places where it excels, we're going to be real positive on. I think it's depiction of the amount of emotional damage that can be done to a young person placed in that kind of character taking advantage of them sexually. I think the game handles that very, very well.
Ooh.
And then there are, the two kind of token gay characters that are maybe not handled so well. So it's like you guys got some things right and you got some things wrong, and that's the only way we get better at these things, is to kind of analyze this is good and this is bad.
I've got some issues with how they handled some of the heavier themes. Particularly the girl who's abused in the first chapter. Everything comes to a boiling head, and then and she's never seen again. It kind of felt like a woman in the refrigerator moment.
She shows up in one character's confidant link much later, but
that's not the main plot.
It's barely a cameo. Yeah.
Yeah, and as somebody who has. When there are problems with young people, sometimes you don't see the end of their story, which really sucks. That is a reality. But I get your point with that too, Robert. I think that is
like she was forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think part of it is in comparing it to Persona 4. In the dungeons in Persona 4, you have you're rescuing characters, and they typically, and most of them join your party after you complete their dungeon and they're rescued. So your individual character development is attached to their introduction, then their dungeon, then their social link, and then their role in the rest of the plot. But in Persona 5, they focus more on the villains than on the victims. So they do an excellent job of convincing you to hate the villains that you're about to challenge. Because all of them are real butt heads, and I was eager to bring them to justice basically every time. But as a result, you have situations like Haru feeling undeveloped because even her arc didn't necessarily revolve around her as much as it revolved around the culprit you were chasing in that palace. So as a result, I think I may be a little less attached to Persona 5's cast than Persona 4's, but again, it's because they chose different targets to focus the narrative on, and they accomplished their goals of making you really hate these villains, which I appreciate, I guess. There's a lot to Persona 5. This thing's awesome.
Do we kind of hope that they take a break with Persona after this? I'd be okay with them taking a break for a while.
Depends on what. To take a break from what? Spin-off games?
I guess I would
less spin-offs.
I hate to tell you guys.
I want less spin-offs, yeah.
They announced Atlas registered 10 domain names related to Persona. 3 of them were Persona 8. 3 of them were Persona 8, Persona 9, and Persona 10, which they probably just need to squat on. But the other 7 were P3D, P5AG, P5D, P5R, P5U, Persona Dance, and PQ2. So I think that we're gonna get maybe even a Persona 4 level of saturation over the next couple of years.
No!
I think they know they have a golden goose on their hands, and they're gonna keep.
All right, I could do with.
Until it's dead.
I think that the biggest problem for me with these is that while all of those spin-offs like Persona 4 Arena and Persona 4 Dancing and even Persona Q are fun on a mechanical level, I hate what they did to the characters in all of them and the canon, I guess, the plot lines. I just felt like, especially Persona 4 Dancing and Persona Q.
Yeah, I actually liked Persona Q a lot, but it was almost entirely from a mechanical perspective, and to just see those familiar names on the screen again, because all of the dialogue and character work in that game is awful. And I liked I even liked the Persona 3 character redesigns in Persona 4 Arena, but the thing is, it was so much Persona 4 and 3 over those, say, 5 years from 2012 to 2016, that it looks like they may even be doubling down and going harder at Persona 5 since they know they have something successful on their hands.
This is a smart move financially, but not one that I'm looking forward to at all.
Yeah,
those voice actors are going to get a lot of work over the next couple of years.
Well, I would just like to see some more adventurous SMT-style games, like maybe another Raido, Kuzunoha. Well, I can't even pronounce it.
Kuzunoha, yeah.
A new Devil Summoner, that'd be cool.
I didn't. It's Devil Survivor's the one I didn't like. I really tried to like Devil Survivor. That game's just way too slow for me. Like that. Maybe I'll try Devil Survivor 2.
Honestly, my favorite non-Persona Atlas game is Digital Devil Saga. So if they made a new RPG that was just like that a little, sort of that that toes the line between your character-driven Persona and your demon collecting SMT. I'd like that so much.
Mm-hmm.
The only place you could take people on a date would just be the desert. Like, that was just like, you want to go to this sand dune, or you want to go to this sand dune, or like this toppled monument over here.
Yeah.
Guys, we literally live in a junkyard. What junk do you like the best?
On the battlefield.
That's one of the things I'm most excited about with SMT, is that because Persona 5's dungeons have just way set the bar for what I'm looking for. Like,
yeah, holy crap! They
crap are they good.
They annihilate the dungeons in Persona 3 and 4. It's not even close.
And now I want to see them do that. Like, you could do that with Digital Devil Saga and because that was my thing about that game. When I started to get into the first one, I really hated the dungeons. Like, they're just flat, boring. Like, again, maybe they get better, but like, I was
they do get better, but they're still just have too many random encounters and can be grueling, but they do get better in that game. I don't want to hate on that game, which I like a lot.
I think they've got a formula now with like maybe some of the more openness of Shin Megami Tensei 4 on 3DS, that real open, like, not open world, but more open non-linear design. And now with this dungeon design for Persona 5, you could put something really, really hot together. Like, I
guess it takes a lot more work. They're so intricately designed, but I mean,
yeah.
They are wonderful. I mean, I really love how Persona 5's dungeons, they replace a teleporter maze with adventure game elements. And, more of that, please.
Yeah, less apocalypse, more this, please. Oh, God. So let's move away from Persona 5. We got a couple quick hits here. Mike, you've been playing Cosmic Star Heroine, aka I almost swore. I stopped myself. Why in the world isn't Sega making more Phantasy Star?
Yeah, I am playing Cosmic Star Heroine. It's a game I gave to on Kickstarter, goodness gracious, maybe 5 years ago now, and it's finally coming out. And I like it a lot. It's a 16-bit styled RPG that has a espionage/sci-fi setting that will immediately evoke Phantasy Star. And there's just a lot of the characters are diverse and fun. The music is awesome. It's immediately. I'm blown away by all the good RPG music we're getting this year between Nier and Persona and Cosmic Star. I already have like my music of the year list written, and it's April. But it's very stylish and fun. The combat moves quickly. Doesn't have a MP/SP/TP system. Instead, all of your abilities can be used and then reloaded by defending, and it has a visible character turn list similar to a Final Fantasy X or a Grandia that has you manipulate turn position. So it's just a very cool visually and orally game that has a lot of neat things going on in combat and navigation. And I've only put in a couple hours because I've been my gaming time has been dominated by Persona 5. But it's a very cool game that's on PS4 and PC right now and is coming to other systems later soon.
I like how Sega CD the cutscenes look.
Yeah. I love that.
The soundtrack for the game is outstanding. It's by Hyperdeck Soundworks, and this developer, Zaboy Games, previously partnered with them for the soundtracks for, I think it was just Penny Arcade on the Reigns Precipice of Darkness 4?
Yeah, they only did, Hyperdeck did 4, and they did the extra content in 3, like the DLC for 3.
Okay. Did Hyperdeck also do Dust and Elysian Tale?
Oh. Yes, they did.
Okay.
It's two Irish guys that we interviewed a couple years ago on an episode of Rhythm Encounter. And their work is excellent. I cannot recommend the Cosmic Star Heroine soundtrack enough.
Soundtrack is fantastic.
The Switch.
I don't know.
Unclear. Yeah, it's coming to Vita soon, and I think it's coming to Xbox One at an undisclosed date.
Oh,
but they start their partnership was with Sony originally, so it was gonna be first day PS4 to begin with.
Okay. Go ahead, Robert.
I was just I haven't heard any of the soundtrack yet. Is it like a chiptune style or?
It's chiptunes influenced, but it's definitely goes beyond what's capable in 16 bits. Okay. And I would recommend just doing a YouTube safari of that music and then buying.
It's pretty guitar heavy.
Yeah, it is. They were influenced. They said by like
So Red Book audio.
Yeah, like the soundtrack to 80s sci-fi movies. It's a little Blade Runner. And like parts of it remind me of like my favorite Mega Man X music. It's really, really good. I encourage checking it out.
Yeah, I need to actually play the game. Thanks to Solosi, I am more interested than I have ever been. So.
But again, I gave a lot of money to the Kickstarter. I'm not reviewing it for the website because I'm too attached to the project. I've been a cheerleader of this game for a while, and I'm overjoyed it's finally coming out, and disappointed that I'm extremely distracted by Persona 5 at the same time.
I would play that game on the Vita, but I am now like, so Salt and Sanctuary came out on the Vita, and wow, that is not a good version of that game. Like,
yeah. Well, I know they were having trouble optimizing Cosmic Star Heroine for Vita too. So what kind of problems are present in that?
At least in the opening areas of the game, it's not even frame rate, it's slowdown. So it feels like you're playing an old school NES game when too much is happening on the screen and like Mega Man is jumping at half speed. The whole game can feel like that, and it's a real shame. I was really looking forward to Salt and Sanctuary on Vita. I really got into that game on PS4, and yikes. I think it's time for people to abandon making games for Vita and just switch over to the Switch, because you're getting a hell of a lot more power and a lot more screen, and it was a real bummer. And maybe it's just the opening areas of the game, and once you push through a couple hours, it's going to be okay. But there are just parts of that feel like you're running through mud, and it's a real shame when you're playing a game that is. That game has a high barrier, and you need to be moving very fast, and it needs to be very responsive. And the moments where it's not kind of suck. So remember, Hyper Light Drifter got canceled for the Vita.
Right. Yeah.
The Vita's a great system.
And the Dungeon as well.
Yeah, the Vita's a great system, but it is apparently a bear to develop for.
Yeah, the Cosmic Star Heroine guys specifically mentioned that they wouldn't have been able to do the Vita if they had waited late to start, but they were, from almost the beginning, they were developing the game in Unity, intending to eventually have it on the Vita. So they started the transposition process early. And I also should mention the PS4 and Vita for Cosmic Star Heroine is cross-buy. So if you buy the PS4 version, once the PS Vita version is out, you'll also have that in your download list.
Yeah,
cool.
And Salt and Sanctuary's cross-buy as well. So it was just weird because I had played it a year ago on PlayStation 4, so I had to delete it and then re-download it, and then I had the Vita version. But yeah, I just, if Cosmic Star comes out on the Switch, that will probably be where I play it. Weirdly enough, I got on a DS Castlevania kick where I had Portrait of Ruin. And so that was the second DS Castlevania game, the one where you get to switch characters. I really like the fact that it takes place with the Bloodlines storyline, the one Sega Genesis. A very underrated Castlevania, in my opinion.
That was the first Castlevania game that my homegirl Michiru Rimane worked on.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately Portrait of Ruin is probably the weakest of the DS Castlevania games.
No way, it's better than Ecclesia by far.
No, you are objectively wrong.
I like Ecclesia more than Portrait of Ruin.
Ecclesia has great ideas, but
Ecclesia doesn't hit every idea, but at least it's
that game needed to be 2 hours longer and have like another page of abilities for Shinoa. But that I like that game a lot.
I think what's weird is that the DS Castlevania games started to rely. Apparently, Iga took it personally when everybody said Harmony of Dissonance and Aria of Sorrow were easy, and he decided to up the difficulty on those DS games. But it's kind of the wrong kind of difficulty, where a lot of the bosses you're just trying not to run into them. Like their best attack is to just like nudge up against you and take like a quarter of your health bar. And
they've got far too much health of their own.
Yeah, like you're just, and don't get me wrong, there are a couple bosses in Ecclesia that are like, holy God, like you are just not fun to. Yeah, the crab can just go to hell. Like that, once you figure out the technique, it's not that bad, but.
The big the Gigas at the end of the hallway can kill you in 2 hits in that thing, and I remember that one being particularly challenging, but you had to have some Mega Man playing reflexes in terms of pattern recognition for the harder parts of those bosses.
There were a couple bosses in Portrait of Ruin that I have like purposefully forgotten about because I was getting pretty pissy. So then I switched over to Dawn of Sorrow. I'm playing through Julius mode on that, which kind of tries to recreate Castlevania 3, except they forgot to bring along Grant Dynasty, the best character in Castlevania history.
Agreed.
And I guess I'm kind of playing these because like we have that Netflix series coming out, God knows when, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we're getting Castlevania animated series and Carmen Sandiego animated series on Netflix later this year, which is awesome.
We can only hope they're as good as Captain and the Game Master.
Do you remember Simon Belmont in that show?
Simon Belmont, Vampire Hunter,
with the enormous chin and the pink frilly outfit.
I just like, good lord. And so I'm playing those, and I guess I'm also excited for Bloodstained, which we brought up a little bit ago. Like the demo for that got me really excited. I guess the two things that I really want out of Bloodstained: one, don't turn it into Booby Monsters, the game, because they've already shown off one Booby Monster, and I'm a little bummed about that.
Every
and also,
Castlevania game needs one. Come on.
Yeah, but like, okay, just one succubus enemy who in the original art for Symphony of the Night just was full blown naked, like. Totally okay with that. There's some cosplay in my head. Now Jackie's wearing that cosplay.
Naked cosplay.
I need to get back to this. And then like I also don't want them to focus on the difficulty. Like I hate that old school game design, like 2D platformers of like the worst thing an enemy can do to you is touch you. Like I don't know why. I'm really glad that we've gotten away from that with like modern video game design. But like, imagine a Dark Souls game where you took damage if you rubbed up against something.
Well, I mean, that old school design is preserved a little bit in the Rogue Legacies and of the world.
Yeah, a little bit.
But again, I don't mind modern games softening that a little bit. Like even like I played Shovel Knight a year ago and thought it was really, really awesome, but sometimes sometimes a bird hit me out of the air and I fell into a pit, and then I had flashbacks to Ninja Gaiden on the NES, and I wish that wouldn't happen anymore. But I mean, that still is around a little bit.
A little bit. I was just really surprised that the Castlevania DS games got hard. Like they legit went from like kind of pushovers. Like Symphony of the Night is just, you could destroy that game. Like just get the Chrysogrim and just tear that game apart.
They made Alucard really powerful in that.
Yeah. So I appreciate the making them difficult again, but I just, in some ways, I think it's the wrong kind of difficulty. I think it's a little artificial. Like, remember the Shadow Boss in Ecclesia where it's only safe in like one pick?
That's the one I was thinking of when I couldn't remember if it was like a shadow or
no shadow. And it's like, if you're not standing on this one pixel, he will just kill you. Like,
so obnoxious.
I should play Ecclesia.
That game's really hard. And then, Mike, can I talk about the other game that I played, or are we supposed to save that for May?
We've been talking about it on a different podcast. So we can bring it up briefly, sure.
Okay, I beat Dragon Quest V. It was amazing. I love that game. It's so good.
5 and 8 are my two favorites in the series, and I've played all of them except for 10, which is the Japan only MMO. So I have a lot of affection for 5. That game's great. If you have enough old school tolerance to play at least the beginning of it, then I recommend it to any fan of RPGs.
Yeah, the beginning was a little tough, but having your dad come and save your ass every time was pretty damn awesome.
Your dad is one of the best NPCs in RPG history.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it on Retro Encounter, but that game just comes full circle, and it also the DS. I can't speak to the original version of that game, but the DS version only took me like 20 hours, which was the perfect length. Like that was just perfect.
The original version is a little harder since you only get 3 characters in your party instead of 4. But otherwise it's pretty much the same, and it's not an overlong RPG. I agree.
Yeah.
You're saying 5 only took you 20 hours to beat?
That's a huge game. I'm very surprised.
It's big, but if you know what you're doing and have played Dragon Quest before, it's much shorter than 6 or 7 or 8.
Yeah, 6 is supposed to be the long one.
7 is the really long one.
Seven's the longest.
I believe 7. The word you're looking for is absurd. Like, that game is just absurdly long. And then 8 on the 3DS was amazing because by speeding up the battles, it went from an 80-hour RPG to a 30-hour RPG.
And then they added more post-game content. I love Dragon Quest 8. We don't need to talk about every Dragon Quest 8 every Dragon Quest game from the 90s onward.
No, we can talk about every Dragon Quest 8.
Well, not this time.
Sure.
But we are going to talk very briefly, because I know Derek has to get out of here. We are going to talk very briefly about Dragon Quest 11.
Right. Oh, man.
Now, please, give it to me now.
It looks so good.
So this was weird, though. Like, the 8-4 Play guys were really down on it. They were like, oh, I don't think it looks as vibrant as Dragon Quest 8. And I'm like, what are you guys smoking?
What?
Like, it looks amazing. Like, every version of that game looks great.
We just got a release date for the PS4 and DS versions, which is July 29th in Japan.
Yep.
And we know that the Switch version is coming, but they don't have a date for that yet.
We don't even know what the Switch version looks
And we don't know
like.
which it is, yeah.
Correct.
And they have a bundle in Japan where you can get both the PlayStation 4 and Nintendo 3DS version.
That's insane. I love it.
Think about that for a second.
I was going to go with this anyway.
On Dragon Quest. Like,
that is so wild and also kind of something I want. So.
And apparently there is a way, like they're being real cagey with the language on this, and it's coming from probably bad localization and translation, but they're being real cagey about the fact that apparently there is a way to go from one version to the other and at least take some of the saves over. Like, I don't know.
I think it's going to be a Dragon Age Inquisition thing. Weird that I bring that game up twice this podcast, where there's like a website you can upload data to, and then like some kind of intermediary.
You email them your save file, and then somebody creates a save in the other version with the same name, and then they play as fast as they can up to where you were.
No.
There's 24-hour turnover.
You gotta like, you open your instruction manual and you find that postcard in the middle that you have to tear out.
Oh, yeah.
You put your name on it, say what other Square Enix games you like, especially Einhander. Throw a stamp on that.
Hey,
and then
hey.
First you got to buy the tube TV and the retro game console near the coffee shop. Then once you beat the game, they give you a card, and once you take the card to the guy in Akibahara, he'll give you a special accessory for it.
You know, Mike, you're joking.
Right? For the Game Gear.
You're joking right now, Mike, but you're going to buy all 3 versions of this damn game.
I don't have a Switch, so I'm gonna buy 2 versions of that damn game, and then the third once I have a Switch.
I'm buying 2 versions of Tokyo Xanadu this year too.
I'm close to buying 2 versions of that, and also 2 versions of Ys 8.
Yeah.
I am really, really. So, what do we think? Do we think it's going to take a year for us to get Dragon Quest 11?
I think 2018, but they have been pretty good about getting more Dragon Quest to us recently. So I don't think they're going to skip it, but I think 2018.
A little bird tells me it's being localized now, but that's all I can say about it.
We're going to talk after this podcast.
That's interesting. Dragon Quest 7 and 8 were localized in the UK, and Rob Fenner does live in the UK.
So can say.
So what you're saying is I need to kill Rob Fenner, wear his skin. Okay, I can make this work. I would say...
How did we get there?
We have so many Robs here, and now there only can be one.
There are too many Mikes and too many Robs on the website. We have to get rid of a few. I'd say probably next year. I'd say like March or April of next year. That would be my estimation.
That's definitely a next year thing. I think it is, at least.
I would hope that we get some kind of confirmation at E3 of just like, and it's coming
That'd
to
be
the
nice.
West.
Yeah, I would
like that. Oh God, it looks so good, guys.
It really does.
I've wanted this game since 2006 when Dragon Quest. No, 2005.
Yeah,
when
5
Quest
and
8 came out.
Yes, that's when it came out.
Because, like, I like 9, don't get me wrong, but 9, I kind of wish they would go back and remake 9 with sprites, because those DS graphics are butt ugly now.
And also, it's kind of hard to go back to 9 since the DS's internet network is down. So you can't use any of the Wi-Fi functions in 9 anymore. Yeah.
Can you not even play that game co-op now?
You probably can locally.
Yeah,
locally.
Oh man, that blows. I don't think 9 aged very well. I think those 3D graphics, yikes, not good.
You know what else comes out this month? Probably like the day this podcast is out is Dragon Quest Heroes 2.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've been playing that for review. I'll have a review on our site shortly. I don't know if it'll be up on release day. Hopefully, that's what I'm shooting for. But,
is it better than DQ1 Heroes?
I mean, it's like more or less the same. You know, it's a Muso game is a Muso game is a Muso game, but this is really polished and has some nice additions. Like the 2 main characters can change vocations, and so you can have them be either like warrior, mage, priest, thief, martial artist. Yeah, those are the 5.
Yep. Yeah, I've watched trailers of it in videos, and it shows that each main character can use something like 8 weapons.
Yeah, I think I want to say maybe more than that. But yeah, the classes sort of affect your stat distribution, and then the weapons all play separately, which is really cool. And a lot of the movesets I've noticed are just based on past characters. Like I put my main character with a whip, and he's just Jessica now.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
so it's nice to have the versatility because you have to have at least one of the main characters in your party at all times. So it's like now you're no longer stuck if you don't want a sword guy. You can make him whatever the hell you want. And generally, I find the original characters created for this one to be just cooler, better. I like their designs better. I like playing as them better.
The original character.
Like
game kind of put that down.
Yeah, I didn't really like those very much, like the boomerang chick and Isla or whatever, and then the king. I thought they were meh. So I like these ones a lot better. And I want to say I think all of the characters from DQ Heroes 1 return, all of the cameo characters.
They do. They specifically brought that up in the materials for this game. I noticed that.
Okay. Yeah, and then there's
bringing in Tornico, aren't they?
Tornico's in it.
Angelo is added. Carver / Hassan from 6 is in it. Kyril / the priest dude from Dragon Quest IV, isn't it?
I really hope that we get a Dragon Quest Builders 2 announcement. I really want
them to work. I don't want that.
No, I do. I want them to work on that formula because I think they had something really good there that just a couple of tweaks here and there. You didn't like it that much?
Interface changes.
No, I think it's fine for what it is. I just think one is enough, but.
I was just bummed
out. Square Enix likes money, so I'm sure they'll make that.
I was just bummed
Maybe
out with
a revised Switch version with better menus.
That could be better.
And Chapter 3.
That would be a good place. That'd be a good place for it too. That would be great as a Switch game.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would like that game. There's some really cool moments where like you got the fire bullets and the ice bullets, and I think that they need to do more of that stuff instead of the just walking up and slashing something 50 times until it finally dies. Like that's what they need to. Like get more of the building aspect into the combat, and you might have something really, really special. That game was really cool. Chapter 3 made me not want to play it.
I think they did a good job, especially considering, as we've discussed before, if you're a Minecraft averse person like me, I think that having direction does wonders for that style of game.
Yes, I
don't necessarily want another one, but I wouldn't begrudge you for wanting another one.
Just want to see some ideas fleshed out a little bit more. That game was charming as hell. Like, that was a really cool. Also, more soundtrack. Like, what's in there is beautiful, but there's like 20 minutes.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I gotta say, like, I'm ready for more Dragon Quest music, or this may be blasphemous, but I don't necessarily need Koichi Sugiyama to continue doing the music for Dragon Quest. Like, I've heard enough.
Not be for much longer at his age. Whoa.
Yeah, he's definitely 90, but I mean,
he's old as hell.
I imported a copy of Dragon Quest Theater Rhythm many moons ago, and it's fun.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work as well, I think, as Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm, just because a lot of Dragon Quest music isn't as distinctly melodic, because there's so many that are just like sweeping orchestral pieces that they all blend together.
A lot of the field gameplay in that works because, like, you know, feeling of character ambling along on a journey works for Dragon Quest, but it's not as like it's not as dynamic or diverse as Final Fantasy music.
I think the biggest problem with the Dragon Quest soundtracks, when you compare the 4-disc soundtrack to Persona 5, which is huge, and there's so many different pieces, and there's instrumental pieces, and then there's the vocal version. Dragon Quest games just don't seem to have a lot of music, but it's beautiful what's there. But then it's like, wow, I've heard the same track over and over and over, and it's like, if I hear one more time, da 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 da, ba 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 ba, da 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 da.
Like, how it still feels fresher to me than Sakuraba's soundtrack.
Oh God, yeah. Well, everything is like. Week-old natto sitting in your fridge is fresher than a Sakuraba soundtrack.
All of him is like replacement level RPG town music. I have difficulty telling his soundtracks apart.
I'm so sick to
death. He used to be good. His stuff at Wolf Team was great.
Yeah, he's capable. It's just I think that he's limited by his overseers. Yeah.
So more Dragon Quest music. That's what we're looking for.
Yes, please.
More soundtrack. Like, don't just give me 12 tracks. I need like 30. All right.
Yes, please.
Yes. All right, so good show, guys. Persona 5, I'm going to now go back upstairs and play it because Jackie's gone all day. So
I'm going to go back downstairs and play it.
I'm going to swivel my chair to the left and play it.
There you go. So thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. For Derek, Mike, and Robert, we will see you all later.
Take your time.
Spinny logo, spinny logo, spinny logo, spinny logo.
Roll the dice given to temptation.
I don't want emancipation. Nah, I'm good.